When David Bowie passed away in January 2016, the whole world felt a deep sadness, as if a bright light had suddenly disappeared from the sky. Fans across every continent cried, shared memories, and played his music to honor him. But behind this global heartbreak was a much more personal and painful story, happening quietly inside a home in New York. In that home lived a 15-year-old girl named Alexandria Lexi Zahra Jones, who had always known her father not as a superstar, not as a legend, but simply as Dad. The man who made her breakfast, who painted with her, who played the piano while she sat beside him, who hugged her tightly when she was scared, and who loved her in a gentle and simple way. For Lexi, Bowie was never the strange characters he played on stage. He was just a loving father who called her my little treasure. When he died, her entire world changed in a single moment. For years, Bowie and his wife, the supermodel and humanitarian Iman, worked very hard to keep Lexi away from media attention. They wanted her to grow up normally, without flashing cameras or people judging her for who her parents were. After Bowie's death, this protection became even stronger. Lexi vanished from public view. No interviews, no red carpets, no posts, no appearances. People wonder where she was, what she looked like, and how she was coping. But Iman decided that silence was the only shield left to protect her daughter's heart. Many people forget that while Bowie entertained millions, he also built a warm and quiet world at home. He cooked, read books, sketched, and spent long hours with his daughter. Losing him did not feel like losing a celebrity. It felt like losing the safest place she had ever known. This is why Lexi's transformation over the past 22 years is not only about her physical appearance. It is also about the emotional journey of a girl who lived through heavy silence, deep sadness, and slow healing. Her story is shaped by the parents who raised her, the cultures they came from, the love that held their home together, and the challenges that tried to break her. Now, after more than 2 decades of life away from the spotlight, the little girl the world once barely saw has grown into a woman whose life story is powerful, surprising, emotional, and full of quiet strength. To understand who she is today, we must first understand the stories of the 2 extraordinary people who brought her into this world, her mother Iman and her father David Bowie, and the world they built around her. Long before the world knew her as a fashion icon, before her face appeared on magazine covers around the world, before designers fought to work with her, Iman was simply Zahra Mohammed Abdul Majid, a young girl born in Mogadishu, Somalia. Her story began on July 25, 1955, in a culture deeply shaped by tradition, discipline, and community. Remarkably, she was the first girl born in her family in 6 generations. This alone made her childhood special and filled with expectations. Her father, Mohammed Abdul Majid, was a respected diplomat who later served as Somalia's ambassador to Saudi Arabia. He was calm, polite, thoughtful, and believed strongly in education. Her mother, Marian, was a trained gynecologist, intelligent, confident, and independent. She became the model of strength that Iman would later pass on to her own daughter. Her grandfather gave her the name Iman, meaning faith, because he believed it would guide her, protect her, and shape her future. This name was not just symbolic. It became a promise she carried throughout her life. From a young age, Iman was taught that knowledge was a powerful tool. When she was only 4 years old, she was sent to a boarding school in Egypt, where she learned to speak Arabic, English, and Italian. Living far from home at such a young age was difficult, but it built resilience, independence, and adaptability, qualities she would rely on throughout her life. Years later, the family moved to Kenya due to political unrest in Somalia. There, Iman attended the University of Nairobi, studying political science. She dreamed of becoming a diplomat, following her father's path. Modeling was not part of her plans, and she did not see herself as a fashion beauty. But fate had other plans. One day, an American photographer named Peter Beard noticed her on campus and instantly recognized her potential. At first, she refused to be photographed. She thought he was just another person who didn't understand her goals. But eventually she agreed, and this decision changed her life forever. Her photos caught attention in the United States, and soon she became one of the most admired models in the world. Her face symbolized elegance, strength, and cultural pride. Designers like Yves Saint Laurent adored her. But despite her success, She never forgot her roots, her values, or her dignity. It was this calm, confident, intelligent woman, shaped by disciplined education, cultural pride, and independence, who would later meet David Bowie and create a life full of love, respect, and meaning. And it is these same qualities that she passed down to her daughter, Lexi. Before the world knew the name David Bowie, before the glitter, the makeup, the fame, the reinventions, the sold-out concerts, and the unforgettable characters, there was simply a young boy named David Robert Jones. He was born on January 8, 1947, in Brixton, London, into a modest family. His childhood was not glamorous. His early life was shaped by music, curiosity, insecurity, and a restless desire to become something more than ordinary. In school, young David was bright but misunderstood. He was fascinated by art, poetry, jazz, and rock and roll. He spent hours listening to records, sketching, and dreaming of a bigger world. But his journey was not easy. During the 1960s, Bowie struggled to find success in the crowded music world. He released several songs and even a full album in 1967, but none of them gained attention. Many artists would have given up at this stage, but Bowie was not ordinary. Reinvention became his survival skill. In 1969, everything changed. He released Space Oddity, a haunting song about Major Tom, an astronaut lost in space. It was released just days before the moon landing, capturing the public's imagination. For the first time, Bowie's voice reached millions. But instead of staying in one musical lane, he kept transforming. In 1972 came Ziggy's Stardust, the character that changed music history. Ziggy was strange, bold, theatrical, gender-bending, futuristic, emotional, and unforgettable. With Ziggy, Bowie pushed boundaries no one dared to touch. Songs like Starman and Suffragette City helped create a new era of glam rock. But Bowie refused to remain trapped in a single identity. In 1975, he reinvented himself again, creating Plastic Soul, and delivered hits like Fame, a collaboration with John Lennon. Then came his Berlin period in the late 1970s, experimental, electronic, emotional, producing masterpieces like Heroes. By the 1980s, Bowie became an international superstar. Let's Dance, Modern Love, and China Girl made him a global icon. His films, such as Labyrinth and The Man Who Fell to Earth, proved he was more than a musician. He was a storyteller in every form. But behind the fame was a man who longed for peace, love, and emotional stability. His close friends often said he was lonely despite the applause. He needed someone who could see him not as a celebrity, but as David Jones, a thoughtful, gentle, sensitive human being searching for connection. This longing is what made his meeting with Iman so life-changing by the late 1980s. David Bowie had already conquered nearly every corner of the artistic world. He had become a legend, but personally, he felt increasingly alone. Fame gave him millions of admirers, but no one to share quiet moments with. His friend Teddy Antolin saw this loneliness clearly. Teddy believed Bowie needed someone calm, intelligent, grounded, and strong enough to understand both the superstar and the private man. He believed that person was Iman. In 1990, at a party in Los Angeles, the two finally met. The moment was almost cinematic. Bowie arrived wearing white denim, driving a white Mustang. Iman walked in wearing all black leather, elegant, confident, mysterious. Teddy said the energy in the room shifted instantly. Bowie was mesmerized not by her fame or beauty, but by her presence, her intelligence, and her quiet strength. They talked for hours. Bowie later admitted that he could not sleep that night because he felt something he had not felt in years, certainty. Meanwhile, Iman was cautious. She had seen how fame could twist love. She wanted something real, not something shiny but empty. Bowie understood this, so he pursued her gently, respectfully, sincerely. When she flew to Paris for work, he sent flowers to her hotel every single day. He wrote notes that said, without saying directly, "I'm serious about you." When she returned, he waited at the airport, quietly, patiently. Iman later said, "He properly wooed me. No man had ever done that." In Bowie, she saw honesty. In Iman, he saw home. Their relationship grew beautifully. They understood each other's pain, dreams, pasts, and fears. In 1992, they married in a simple but soulful ceremony. This love created a peaceful home where two artistic souls finally found rest. Their daughter, Lexi, would one day inherit this love. After their marriage, Bowie and Iman made a decision that surprised many. Instead of living in constant spotlight, they stepped back. They moved to New York City, built a warm home, and made privacy their priority. Bowie, who had spent decades performing, wanted a simple life. He loved cooking dinner, reading books, walking around the city, and spending peaceful evenings with Iman. The greatest joy of their life arrived on August 15th, 2000, when their daughter, Alexandria Lexi Zahra Jones, was born. Bowie was 53. Iman was 45. They understood that her arrival was a miracle. Bowie cut the umbilical cord with trembling hands and cried. They chose her name carefully. Alexandria, meaning strength and heritage, and Zahra, meaning inner light, the name Iman almost had as a child. They refused to raise Lexi in fame. No red carpets, no magazine covers, no publicity events. They wanted her to feel normal, safe, free. Bowie painted pictures with her. He showed her how to play simple notes on the piano. They walked together through the city like any ordinary family. Bowie once said, "Being Lexi's father is my greatest joy, greater than any music I've ever made." But behind this perfect home was a secret only a few knew. In 2014, Bowie was diagnosed with liver cancer. He chose not to tell the world, wanting to protect his daughter from panic. For 18 months he fought, writing music, smiling for Lexi, pretending to be strong even when he was weak. On January 10th, 2016, he passed away. The world lost a legend. Lexi lost her father, her protector, her favorite person. When Bowie died, millions mourned. But inside his home, the pain was much deeper. Lexi was just 15. Overnight, her world collapsed. She stopped appearing in public. She deleted posts. She stayed silent. She didn't want sympathy. She didn't want attention. She wanted her father back. Iman posted only one message. The struggle is real, but so is God. Behind that short sentence was a storm of grief inside their home. Lexi felt lost. She didn't know how to navigate life without the man who guided her. In 2024, she finally opened up in an emotional essay. She wrote, "I drown myself in toxins and poison. I hurt the ones I loved most with hateful words. Try and make them feel a little bit of the pain I lived every day." Her confession revealed the truth. She was deeply broken, confused, angry, sad, and scared. She felt abandoned by life. She pushed away people who tried to help her. She isolated herself. She painted dark art. She wrote sad poems. Her mind was a battlefield. But slowly, through time, therapy, art, and her mother's strength, she began healing as she entered adulthood. Lexi started to rebuild herself through art. Like her father, she found comfort in drawing, painting, and music. She posted small pieces of artwork online under a quiet, private account. Her style was emotional, expressive, and colorful, showing both pain and hope. Art became her safe space, a language she could understand even when words failed. She also found healing through writing, expressing her grief in poems and journal entries. Her transformation wasn't fast. It was slow, heavy, and full of setbacks. But every step forward showed strength. She began reconnecting with friends, trusting people again, and discovering who she was without her father. She also found comfort in her multicultural identity, Somali, British, American, and in her mother's wisdom. By her early 20s, she started appearing more online, showing confidence and peace. Her transformation surprised many who remembered her as a quiet, shy, hidden child. After 22 years, Lexi has grown into a stunning and confident young woman. She has inherited the best features of both her parents. From Iman, she carries grace, elegance, high cheekbones, expressive eyes, and natural beauty. From Bowie, she inherited creativity, uniqueness, and a quiet intensity in her face. Her fashion style is artistic and modern. She often dyes her hair, wears bold makeup, and experiments with clothes like a true artist. But her beauty is not the most striking part. What truly surprises people is her calm energy, gentle personality, and thoughtful presence. She is kind, soft-spoken, funny in a subtle way, and deeply artistic. She lives quietly, away from fame, just as her parents wanted. Many people believe she may have a future in art, fashion, or music, but she is taking her time, moving at her own pace, and choosing peace over pressure. Iman and Lexi share an incredibly strong bond. After Bowie's death, they became each other's emotional support. Iman often says that Lexi saved her from drowning in grief. They travel together, celebrate birthdays quietly, and honor Bowie through memories. Iman once said, "David lives in her. Every day, I see a part of him in her eyes, in her smile, in her kindness." Lexi keeps her father's memory alive through art, music, and private traditions. She listens to his albums, keeps his drawings, and visits places he loved. But she does it quietly, without using his fame. She respects his legacy deeply, but wants to build her own identity, without relying on his name. This balance, honoring her father while creating her own life, is one of the most inspiring parts of her journey. Now, after 22 years, the world is finally catching up with the shocking transformation of Alexandria Lexi Jones. The shy, protected little girl has become a confident, beautiful, emotionally mature woman who survived heartbreak, isolation, grief, and self-destruction. People gasp when they see her now, not just because of her physical beauty, but because of the strength in her eyes. She represents two powerful stories, Iman's cultural elegance and Bowie's artistic soul. She is proof that healing takes time, that grief can shape strength, and that true transformation begins from within. As she continues growing, the world watches quietly, respecting her privacy and admiring how she turned pain into art, silence into voice, and loss into wisdom. Her story reminds us that behind every celebrity child is a human life filled with struggles, hopes, and dreams. And after 22 years, Lexi's journey is still unfolding. Beautiful, emotional, surprising, and powerful, Lexi entered her late teenage years. She found herself standing at a strange crossroads, one where her past felt too heavy to carry, and her future felt too far to touch. She was still the daughter of David Bowie and Iman, two names that echoed loudly in the world, even years after Bowie's passing. But now she was also a young woman trying to build a life that made sense to her, not a life shaped by fame, not a life shaped by global expectations, but a life shaped by her own gentle heart. And that heart had been hurt more deeply than she ever allowed the world to see. She tried to smile in pictures, tried to share moments with friends, but there were mornings she woke up and felt a weight on her chest that she could not explain. There were nights she stayed awake staring at old photos, wondering what her father would say about the person she was becoming. Would he be proud? Would he think she was strong enough? Would he see the courage in her silence? These questions followed her everywhere. Yet at the same time, something new was growing inside her. Something small and quiet, but powerful. It was the beginning of acceptance. Not acceptance of pain, but acceptance that she could live with both love and loss at the same time. It was a moment she realized she did not have to choose between being her father's daughter and being her own person. She could be both. And so, she began taking slow steps into a future she had once feared to face. She started drawing more, sharing bits of her art online. Her sketches were soft, emotional, filled with colors that showed a heart learning to breathe again. People began to notice, not because she was famous, but because her art felt honest. Many young people saw themselves in her drawings. The loneliness, the silent hope, the small candles of healing that flickered in her work. In those simple lines and gentle strokes, Lexi found a way to speak without breaking. She found a way to share pieces of her story without saying a single word. And little by little, her world began to open. She made new friends who liked her for who she was, not for the name she carried. She built new habits that brought peace to her daily life. Morning walks, soft music, quiet reading, long talks with her mother, who became her anchor when her world felt unsteady. Through all this, Iman watched her daughter slowly rise from the heavy shadows of grief, and she knew Bowie would have been proud. He had always said Lexi had a kind of magic no one else could understand, a light that did not shine loudly, but shone deeply. And now that light was growing again, but this time on her own terms. She was choosing her path, choosing her future, choosing her way of honoring the man she lost without losing herself. And in this painful but beautiful journey, Lexi discovered something important. Grief does not end, but it becomes softer when you learn to walk with it. Instead of fighting her memories, she carried them gently. Instead of hiding her pain, she turned it into art. And instead of letting the world define her, she started defining herself. These moments, small, quiet, and powerful, were the steps that slowly turned the daughter of two legends into a woman discovering her own identity, her own dreams, her own voice. And though she did not know exactly where life was leading her, she finally felt ready to follow its path with steady feet and an open heart as Lexi moved further into adulthood. She began to understand that her story was not just about being the daughter of two iconic people. It was about finding balance between the world she inherited and the world she wanted to build for herself. This balance was not always easy. Fame has a way of following a child long before they understand what it even means, and Lexi felt that shadow many times. Whenever she stepped outside, she could feel eyes on her, people wondering what David Bowie's daughter looked like now, whether she would follow in his footsteps, whether she would grow into a public figure like her mother. These expectations were heavy, but Lexi learned to face them with quiet courage. She did not try to please everyone. She did not try to fill her father's shoes, and she did not try to become something she wasn't. Instead, she chose to grow slowly, naturally, and honestly. She realized she did not need to be extraordinary to be worthy. She just needed to be herself. And that understanding became a turning point in her life. It gave her the strength to try new things without worrying about judgment. It gave her room to learn who she was. One of the biggest steps she took was exploring her identity through creativity. Art was her safe place, but she also felt drawn to music, not in the same large, dramatic way her father once lived it, but in a soft, personal way. She would sit in her room with a notebook, writing small lyrics, little melodies, tiny pieces of thoughts that felt meaningful to her. She did not share them with anyone, but they were hers, and that was enough. Over time, this private creative world helped her understand her emotions in a deeper way. It helped her see that she did not need to run from her pain. She could use it to understand herself better. She could use it to grow. And as she grew, her relationship with her mother became stronger than ever. Iman, who had lived a life full of twists, challenges, and incredible achievements, became both a guide and a friend. She knew what it felt like to be watched, judged, or misunderstood by the world. She knew what it meant to build a life in the middle of public pressure. So she used all that wisdom to help Lexi stay grounded. She reminded her that beauty, fame, and attention were temporary, but character, kindness, and inner strength lasted forever. These lessons shaped Lexi's personality as she stepped into her 20s. She became calmer, wiser, and more thoughtful. She spoke less but observed more. She chose friends carefully, always valuing people who made her feel safe and seen. And in this circle of loved ones, she learned that healing did not always happen in big moments. It happened in small steps. A quiet dinner with her mother, a deep conversation with a friend, a peaceful evening walk, a new drawing made late at night, a memory of her father that made her smile instead of cry. All these pieces slowly came together to show her that she was not defined by tragedy. She was defined by how she carried herself through it. And people began to notice this change. Not because she was suddenly everywhere online, but because whenever she did appear, she carried a calmness and maturity that felt different from most people her age. She had a softness that came from her mother and a spark that came from her father, a unique mix that made her stand out even without trying. As the world watched her transform from a quiet, grieving teenager into a confident and gentle young woman, many could not help but wonder what she would do next. Would she step into the world of fashion like her mother? Would she explore music or film like her father? Or would she choose an entirely different path, one free from the expectations tied to her last name? These questions remained open, but one thing had become clear. Lexi was no longer living in the shadow of her parents' legacy. She was slowly creating a legacy of her own, one built on resilience, creativity, and a heart that refused to give up, even when life felt heavy. And this journey, still unfolding, was just beginning to reveal the woman she was destined to become. As more time passed, Lexi began stepping into the world with a new kind of confidence. Quiet, steady, and honest. She did not try to shock people with bold changes, nor did she chase attention the way many celebrity children often felt pressure to do. Instead, she chose a peaceful path, one where she could breathe, think, and move at her own pace. And while she continued to live a mostly private life, every rare moment she shared with the public showed a young woman who had learned to embrace her story rather than hide from it. One of the biggest changes people noticed was her gentle transformation in style and appearance. When she was younger, she dressed simply, often avoiding anything that made her stand out. But as she entered her 20s, she slowly began experimenting with her look. Sometimes she wore soft, natural tones. Other times she chose pieces that hinted at her father's boldness and her mother's elegance. It was never loud, but it was always thoughtful, always her. And people admired this. Many young fans, especially those who also grew up with loss or emotional struggles, saw Lexi as a symbol of quiet strength. She didn't pretend to be perfect. She didn't pretend to be fearless. She just kept moving forward, step by step, and that made her journey feel real, relatable, and inspiring. But even as her confidence grew, she never forgot the importance of staying grounded. She stayed close to her family, especially to her half-siblings, who gave her a sense of belonging during times when fame felt overwhelming. Her bond with her brother Duncan Jones, Bowie's older son, grew stronger as they both learned to navigate life without their father. Duncan offered her advice, shared memories, and gave her the kind of comfort only someone who understood their shared loss could give. Their relationship became a reminder that even when a family is shaped by fame, the love inside it can still be simple and healing. Through the support system, Lexi continued exploring her creative interests. She painted more, wrote more, and even attended classes that helped her expand her artistic skills. For her, creativity wasn't just a hobby, it was therapy. It helped her understand her emotions, control her anxiety, and express feelings she couldn't always speak out loud. Sometimes she shared her artwork online, surprising people with how mature and expressive her pieces were. Soft portraits, emotional sketches, dreamlike images filled with color and meaning. Each one offered a small window into her heart. Many viewers comment on how her art carried a depth that felt far beyond her age, a depth that came from years of love, loss, and healing. And slowly, this talent began shaping her future in a quiet but powerful way. Some people expected her to follow her parents into the spotlight, but Lexi never seemed interested in fame for its own sake. She preferred authenticity over attention. She wanted her art to be seen, not her private life. She wanted her work to speak, not the name she carried. This attitude made her different from many celebrity children, and also made her more respected. People admired her privacy, her self-control, and her refusal to let fame define her. And as more individuals discovered her work, a new kind of curiosity began growing. Who was Lexi Jones becoming? Not Bowie's daughter, not Iman's daughter, but herself. As she continued to live quietly but meaningfully, she began inspiring people without even trying. She showed that healing does not need to be loud. Growth does not need to be dramatic. Strength does not need to be shouted. Her transformation, emotional, personal, artistic, was not the kind that demanded the world's attention, but it was the kind that stayed in people's hearts. And while her journey was still far from complete, each new chapter revealed more the woman she was becoming. Thoughtful, grounded, creative, and deeply connected to the legacy of love she carried from both her parents. Even though she rarely spoke publicly, her presence alone was enough to remind the world that sometimes the quietest people have the most meaningful stories to tell. As Lexi entered her early 20s, she began to understand something important about herself. She was not trying to replace her father's legacy, nor was she trying to escape it. Instead, she was learning how to carry it in a way that felt natural and healthy. This was not easy. Growing up as a daughter of David Bowie meant every step she took was watched, compared, or judged by people who expected her to become something extraordinary. But Lexi chose a different approach. She allowed herself to grow slowly, without pressure, without rushing to prove anything to the world. And in this gentle way, she began finding her own identity, one that was shaped by love, healing, and creativity rather than fame or fear. One of the biggest surprises for many people was how humble she remained despite being born into a life surrounded by music, fashion, and global recognition. She didn't rely on her parents' names to open doors. She didn't ask for special treatment. Instead, she worked quietly on herself, her art, and her emotional health. Some people said she seemed like an old soul, someone who had seen more than her age suggested. And maybe that was true. Losing a father at 15, battling grief, learning to rebuild from the inside. These experiences gave her a depth that couldn't be faked. They shaped her into a person who listened more than she spoke, who watched more than she performed, who created not for approval but for peace. This wisdom also changed how she approached the world around her. Unlike many celebrity children who chase glamour, Lexi preferred authenticity. She liked simple days, calm routines, and quiet spaces where she could think and create. She enjoyed walking through New York without attracting attention, blending into crowds like any other young woman. These peaceful moments made her feel grounded. They reminded her that life didn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. But even as she tried to live quietly, the world never stopped wondering what she would become. Fans of David Bowie kept a gentle curiosity about her, hoping she might one day follow in his footsteps. Some imagined her as a musician, others as a model like her mother, and some even dreamed she would step into acting or public art projects. Yet Lexi did something surprising. She chose to stay private. She chose art, not fame. She chose healing, not pressure. And this choice made people admire her even more. It showed that she wasn't afraid of living life her way, even if the world expected something different. This sense of independence also shaped her relationship with her mother, Iman. Over the years, their bond grew even stronger. They had already survived the darkest period of their lives together, leaning on one another when everything felt uncertain. But as Lexi matured, she and Iman developed a deep friendship, built on respect, honesty, and love. Iman often said that her daughter reminded her of David, not because of her looks, but because of her quiet intensity, her thoughtful mind, and the way she felt emotions deeply. And Lexi admired her mother's strength, seeing her not just as a parent, but as a survivor, a fighter, and a woman who carried grace even through heartbreak. Together, they created a life that honored Bowie's memory without becoming trapped in it. They celebrated him in small ways, play his music on special days, visiting places he loved, keeping his artistic spirit alive in their home. These traditions didn't make the pain disappear, but they made it easier to carry. They turned grief into connection and loss into remembrance. As Lexi grew into adulthood, she learned to see her father not just as a legend, but as a human being, a man who loved deeply, who protected his family fiercely, and who left behind a legacy far bigger than music. He left behind kindness. He left behind creativity. He left behind a daughter who would one day show the world that strength can be soft, healing can be slow, and transformation can be quiet yet powerful. And while Lexi still avoids the spotlight, her journey continues to attract admiration because it speaks to something universal. The courage to rebuild, to rediscover, and to rise again after being broken. As Lexi continued moving forward with her life, she began to understand something that only people who have survived deep loss can truly feel. Grief is not something that disappears one day. It becomes companion, a silent shadow that walks beside you, sometimes heavy, sometimes gentle, but always present. For years, she tried to push it away, hoping that time alone would heal every wound. But with age came wisdom, and Lexi realized that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant learning how to live again, while carrying the memory of someone you love. And with this understanding, she found a sense of peace that had once felt impossible. She started creating art differently. In her earlier years, her drawings and paintings were filled with dark colors, sharp lines, and emotional storms. They reflected the pain she couldn't speak out loud. But as she healed, her work softened. Her colors grew warmer. Her shapes became less chaotic. Art became a safe space, a place where she could express her emotions without judgment. She never cared about selling her pieces for money or showing them in galleries for attention. Instead, she painted for herself because it helped her breathe. This creative freedom allowed her to grow in ways she hadn't expected. It taught her patience, compassion, and the power of expressing her inner world without fear. Her mother noticed a change and gently encouraged her to continue exploring her artistic voice. Iman always believed that creativity could become a bridge between Lexi and her father, a way to stay connected to him while still claiming her own path. And in many ways, that belief came true. As Lexi experimented with painting, music, and writing, she discovered that creative expression was not just a hobby. It was a healing tool. Some days, she would sit by the window in her home, looking out over the New York skyline, sketchbook in hand, remembering the quiet moments she shared with her father. Other days, she would paint without thinking, letting her emotions guide the brush. These simple acts allowed her to rebuild her sense of identity piece by piece. But healing did not erase the challenges she faced in the real world. Because she was the daughter of two global icons, people often made assumptions about her life. Many imagined she lived a life of luxury without hardship. Others thought she would become a celebrity simply because of her parents. But Lexi wanted none of that. She wanted to build herself honestly. She once said that she didn't want to be known simply as David Bowie's daughter, because she felt that title placed unrealistic expectations on her. She wanted to be known for who she was, not for the name she carried. This mindset shaped her everyday decisions. She avoided red carpets, celebrity parties, and public events. She rarely gave interviews. She kept her social media limited and personal. She lived like a normal young woman, cherishing her privacy more than attention. And although some people misunderstood this choice, those who truly knew her admired her strength. They understood that in a world obsessed with fame, choosing peace is an act of courage. Her relationship with her mother also deepened during this time. Iman had always been protective of her daughter, especially after Bowie's death. But she also gave Lexi room to grow. She allowed her to make mistakes, learn her own lessons, and develop her own opinions. They traveled together, cooked together, laughed together, and shared long conversations about life, love, and the legacy Bowie left behind. These moments helped Lexi feel supported without feeling controlled. They reminded her that she wasn't alone, even when the shadows of grief felt heavy. As she moved forward, she started to explore who she wanted to be in the future. She didn't know yet if she wanted art to be her career, or she would choose another path entirely. But what she did know was that she wanted her life to be meaningful. She wanted to help others who struggled with loss, mental health, and identity. She wanted to show that even in silence, a person can grow strong. And as the world slowly caught glimpses of her transformation, people began to see her not just as Bowie's daughter, but as a symbol of resilience, healing, and quiet courage. She had stepped out of shadows, not to chase fame, but to stand firmly in her own light. Soft, steady, and beautifully, her OW as Alexandria Zahra Jones continued to grow. Something very interesting started to happen that many people did not expect. Even though she was the daughter of two of the most famous and most photographed people in the world, Iman and David Bowie made a strong effort to keep her away from cameras, interviews, and constant attention. They did this because they understood better than anyone what fame can do to a young and developing mind. Bowie had lived through loud crowds, flashing lights, and endless travel for decades, and he often said that he did not want his daughter to feel the pressure of being watched all the time. Iman also experienced a heavy responsibility of fame, especially in the fashion world, where beauty is judged closely and sometimes cruelly. Together, they promised to raise Lexi in an environment that was calm, stable, and filled with normal family moments. This choice gave her something that many celebrity children never get: the chance to discover who she truly is without the noise of the outside world telling her what she should be. People around them often said that Lexi grew up in a home full of music, art, laughter, and love, but also in a place where privacy was treated like treasure. And because of that, she learned early how to value her peace more than attention. Even though Lexi stayed away from the public eye, the world still felt curious about her. Fans of David Bowie wanted to know if she had his artistic spark, and admirers of Iman wondered if she would someday appear on magazine covers just like her mother. But Lexi herself never seemed to chase the spotlight. She grew up enjoying simple things: painting, reading, walking in nature, and spending time with close friends. Her family said that she always had a calm but deep way of looking at the world, almost as if she was quietly observing everything and collecting experiences like pieces of art. She would sometimes draw for hours without stopping, using colors and shapes to express feelings she did not want to speak out loud. Some people who saw her art said that it carried the spirit of her father's creativity, full of emotion, imagination, and meaning hidden in small details. Iman proudly shared a few of Lexi's paintings online, and fans were amazed at how strong and expressive her style was. Many people commented that her talent seemed natural, almost as if she inherited her father's artistic soul. But even with such talent, and with parents who could have opened every door in the world for her, Lexi never became someone who depended on fame or privilege. She was raised to be humble, respectful, and grounded. Iman often taught her the importance of kindness, patience, and understanding. She reminded Lexi that life is not only about success or beauty, but about staying true to who you are, helping people when you can, and creating a world where love is more powerful than ego. Bowie, on the other hand, encouraged her to be curious, to learn new things, to explore ideas, and to never limit her imagination. Together, their lessons built a strong foundation inside Lexi, one that allowed her to grow into a young woman with confidence but without arrogance, talent but without the need to show off, and beauty but without using it for attention. This balance became even more important after Bowie passed away in 2016, a moment that changed Lexi's life forever. Losing her father at such a young age was incredibly painful, but it also gave her a stronger purpose. She began to understand how much her parents had protected her and how deeply they loved her. She realized that her father left not only music behind, but a message, a reminder that life is short, and the best thing you can do is fill it with meaning. This made Lexi more thoughtful, more expressive, and more determined to follow her own path rather than anyone else's expectations. Instead of stepping into the spotlight to use her father's name, she stepped deeper into her art, using colors and lines to express her love, her grief, and her dreams. And slowly, the world began to see glimpses of who she was becoming. Not a copy of Bowie, not a reflection of Iman, but someone new, someone unique, someone shaped by love, art, and strength.